From Studio 1Z, with the latest news, commentary, and weather, it's the KZRG Morning News Watch on Newstalk, KZRG.
It's FM 102.9, 105.9, AM 1310, and on your smart speaker, it's Newstalk KZRG, Ted Bojorquez.
And Steve Scott.
And joining us this morning is Denny Hoskins, who's running for Missouri Secretary of State. How are you doing this morning, Denny?
Doing great. Looks like it's going to be a hot week, but other than that, doing really well.
Yes, hot indeed. With good time to cool off and do a little lakeside swimming, huh?
I wish I had time for that. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, Denny Hoskins running for Missouri Secretary of State. For those who are unfamiliar with you and your working history and your policies and your just outlook on life generally, give us a little bit about yourself. Give us your background and why it is you're running for Secretary of State.
Yes, I'm a certified public accountant, so that's my real job outside the legislature of being a current Missouri State Senator, a veteran of the Missouri Army National Guard, and a conservative fighter who believes that our rights come from God, not state government. I'm also a member of the founding member of the Missouri Freedom Caucus. So, yes, I was one of the ones that lost my chairmanship, got kicked off 2 committees, lost my parking spot, and they talked about taking away my office furniture, all for trying to get the conservative IP reform passed this year. Married and have 5 kids between us, and actually a grandpa as well. So three grandsons, a 7-year-old, 3-year-old, and 1-year-old. And I've been out on the campaign trail for quite some time. You know, I believe that our most secure elections are in person on election day with a paper ballot and a voter ID. I want to make sure that non-citizens don't vote in the state of Missouri, and the listeners will have a chance to weigh in on that probably in the November election with SJR 78. And then also, I do have some questions about the machines, especially after what happened in the Puerto Rico primary election this past week.
Interesting. It's Denny Hoskins running for Missouri Secretary of State here on Newstalk KZRG. And you touched on this a little bit already, Denny, but more broadly speaking, why is it you're running for Missouri Secretary of State? What do you hope to achieve primarily if elected?
Well, I think everything starts off with elections. If our elections aren't safe and secure, then it doesn't matter who is elected president, lieutenant governor, U.S. Senate, city council, school board. If people question those results because they don't trust the system, then nothing else matters. And so we need to make sure that our elections are safe and secure. We've seen videos from other states, such as the state of Georgia, where, a car pulled up, popped the trunk, grabbed a duffel bag full of absentee ballots and popped them in the ballot drop box. Now, fortunately, in 2022, we were able to require voter ID, ban ballot drop boxes, and also ban the use of Zuckerbucks. So we've been able to take, some steps, but there's a few things that we could do better and more of as far as election security. One of those is passing. I had a bill that would out of existing resources. So utilizing existing staff in the Secretary of State's office, create an Office of Election Integrity. And they would be on call before the election, starting when absentee ballots are coming out, which I believe is coming up pretty soon, June 25th. Be on call around our 4 Secretary of State's offices across the state, Springfield, Jeff City, Kansas City, and St. Louis. And so there'd be a whistleblower line. And if someone thought something nefarious was going on, either at the polling location or at the clerk's office or something just seemed off, they could call in to the whistleblower line, and one of these, on-call audit task forces could be there immediately. And then also, I think we need security cameras at our polling locations. We would know of a lot of this election fraud, whether it's Wanda in Connecticut that was stuffing ballots into the ballot drop box actually in the county courthouse, or, like I said, the state of Georgia, if we didn't have video footage of that. So those are 2 things that I think that we could do a little bit better.
It's Missouri State Senator Denny Hoskins running for Missouri Secretary of State here on Newstalk KZRG. Denny Hoskins, now you touched on this a little bit earlier, your thoughts on non-U.S. citizens voting in U.S. elections, whether statewide. What would you do if elected to Missouri Secretary of State? What efforts would you commit to put a stop to that?
Well, I guess it all started off with a bill that I filed in the Missouri State Senate, Senate Bill 1520, which would make it a state crime for illegals to be here in the state. Currently, it's not a state crime, and so if Biden would just enforce our current federal immigration laws, we wouldn't have an open border in our southern border. But currently, it's not a state crime to be here an illegal immigrant, and so I would push for Senate Bill 1520 from one of my colleagues in order to pass that. And basically, what it says, it will fine any illegal immigrant as well as deport them to wherever they came back from. If they're not here, they can't vote. And so we also passed SJR 78, which the main premise of that was to ban ranked choice voting. And we don't have a lot of time to talk about ranked choice voting, but in that ballot measure that voters are going to be able to list or vote on this probably November, it also said that we are going to only citizens can vote in the state of Missouri. So right now in Article 8, Section 2 of the Missouri Constitution, it says all citizens can vote. I equate that to say, Ted, if I said all dogs are welcome at my house and you showed up with a cat, I didn't say cats couldn't vote or cats couldn't come to my house. I said all dogs are welcome. And so I think that's similar to what we're going through in the state of Missouri. Other states like California, Maine, and Maryland that have similar language that we have saying all citizens can vote in the state of Missouri are letting non-citizens vote in local elections when we talk about school board and city council. So those are some of the things that I would make sure that we do to ensure that non-citizens don't vote here in the state.
It's Missouri State Senator Denny Hoskins running for Missouri Secretary of State here on Newstalk KZRG. Now, of course, a big part of Secretary of State, Denny Hoskins, as you know, of course, is election integrity and dealing with the elections and whatnot. But another big part of it is the business aspect of the role. And so my question for you, Denny Hoskins, running for Missouri Missouri Secretary of State, is if elected, what would you do to make Missouri more business friendly?
Well, I think one of those, yes. So if you create a business, whether it's an LLC, LLP, or partnership, you file that through the Secretary of State's office. And so I want to make sure that process is very easy and very streamlined. So you don't have to pay a certified public accountant like me, a few $1,000s or an attorney a few $1,000s in order to create a business. So I want to make sure that process is streamlined. Another bill that we actually passed this year that will affect businesses as well is the sandbox bill. So Senator Fitzwater and I both filed that bill. It was combined together. But one of those things in the sandbox bill is it requires the Department of Economic Development to create an annual report based on feedback from our small businesses that say, hey, these rules and regulations are really outdated or these don't apply. We're having to do this and spend hours and money on things that really, a lot of red tape that don't apply to my business. And they're going to come out with a report on that. So if any of those apply to the Secretary of State's office, I'm going to be a champion to fix that and eliminate any of those burdensome regulations when their annual report comes out.
It's Denny Hoskins running for Missouri Secretary of State here on Newstalk KZRG. Denny, we're pushing up against the clock here, but if you had one final elevator pitch, so to speak, as to why voters should vote Denny Hoskins for Missouri Secretary of State, what would that elevator pitch be?
Well, I think, number one, I'm a conservative fighter. I'm not a campaign conservative. I don't go around on the campaign trail and say one thing and then go to Jefferson City and act like a liberal Democrat. I've always said, too, that I said this before, the most secure elections are in person on Election Day with a voter ID and a paper ballot. I filed bills to require hand counting of ballots. I don't trust the election machines. And like I said, just this past week or in the last couple of weeks when Puerto Rico had their primary election, the counts turned out different between the machines as well as the paper ballots. And so I'm going to be one that really stands up and fights for what's right, fights for our constituents, not one to just sit back on my hands and let the liberal Democrats take over.
It's Denny Hoskins running for Missouri Secretary of State here on Newstalk KZRG. Denny, if people want to learn more about you and your campaign, where do they go?
Yes, they can find me on my website at dennyhoskins.com. That's DENNYHOSKINS.com. I'm also on Facebook and then X or Twitter. My X Twitter handle is at DL Hoskins. So they can find out more about me and the campaign and how to get involved if they would like.
Nice. Denny Hoskins, running for Missouri Secretary of State. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Yes, thanks for having me.
We'll talk to you again soon. That was Denny Hoskins, who's running for Missouri Secretary of State here on Newstalk, KZRG.